The planet known as Cryos was a jewel of unimaginable cruelty. It hung in the black, star-dusted void, a crystalline shard perpetually assaulted by blizzards that screamed for weeks on end, and ice storms that struck with the force of meteorites, shattering even the toughest reinforced alloys. Outside the colony domes, temperatures plunged to a soul-numbing -100 degrees Celsius, a cold so absolute it could freeze a whispered thought before it left your lips. Within the fragile domes, the steady, rhythmic hum of the cryo-fusion generators was the colony's very heartbeat, a defiant thrum against the planet's relentless frigid embrace. It was a life lived on the razor's edge, a tiny bubble of warmth and desperate hope against an indifferent, frozen eternity. For generations, humanity clung to this icy outpost, a testament to their sheer stubbornness. The colossal cryo-fusion generators, once the pinnacle of engineering, had faithfully churned out the energy that sustained every breath, every flickering light, every hydroponic growth. But even the best technology eventually succumbs to the relentless. One bitter cycle, the hum began to falter. A low, grinding groan echoed through the main conduits. Not a mechanical failure, but something far more insidious. The extreme, unique cold of Cryos had, over decades, caused an unforeseen molecular fatigue in the generator's core crystals, slowly eroding their very structure. Then, with a shudder that vibrated through the entire colony, the first generator went silent. Its gargantuan frame sagged, its lights flickered once, twice, then died, taking a quarter of the colony's precious power grid with it. Engineers scrambled, their faces stark with panic in the emergency red glow, but diagnostic readouts screamed catastrophic crystal degradation. A terrifying domino effect began, threatening to pull the remaining generators down into the cold silence. The impact was immediate and devastating. Power flickered out across entire sectors. The automated heating systems groaned, sputtered, and fell silent. In the vital hydroponic farms, where rows of nutrient-rich vats usually glowed with the vibrant green of growing food, a thin, creeping sheet of ice began to form on the water's surface. The delicate young shoots, the colony's future sustenance, began to shrivel, their life force draining with the falling temperature. In the medical bay, the steady, reassuring beeps of critical life support machines grew erratic, their power levels dropping dangerously low. You could hear the faint, desperate coughs of the elderly, the whimper of children shivering in their bunks, their breath misting in the suddenly chill air. A pervasive sense of despair, colder than any Cryos storm, settled over them. Survival wasn't just about breathing, it was about the fundamental warmth that kept their blood flowing, their hearts beating. Amidst the growing chaos, a lone figure stood, his hand pressed against the now cold casing of a defunct power conduit, as if trying to coax life back into it by sheer will. This was Engineer Finn Hayes. He wasn't your typical, by-the-book genius. Finn was a brilliant, highly eccentric geothermal specialist, known throughout the colony for his unorthodox jugad, a term he'd picked up from ancient Earth schematics for the art of improvisational, ingenious solutions. He had a habit of muttering to his wrenches as if they held complex conversations, and his dry, witty humor was as unpredictable as a Cryos blizzard. Often underestimated due to his perpetually grease-stained hands and disheveled hair, Finn was, nonetheless, the last, best hope when it came to making something from nothing. Finn's connection to the colony ran deeper than duty. His younger sister, Elara, suffered from a rare respiratory condition, making her acutely vulnerable to the cold. Her life support in the medical bay was now flashing a chilling red, her breath shallow. His best friend Jarek, who managed the hydroponics, had called moments ago, his voice choked with despair as he watched their food source slowly die. A profound burning responsibility, colder than Cryos itself, settled in Finn's gut. Finn's gaze drifted from the failing generators to the reinforced viewport, past the shimmering dome, towards the distant, jagged silhouette against the perpetually dim horizon. Mount Ignis. They called it the heart of Cryos, a colossal, seemingly dormant volcano that stood alone in the icy wasteland, its peak occasionally venting faint wisps of steam that vanished instantly. To the old-timers, it was more than a mountain. It was a symbol of raw, untamed planetary power, a place to be avoided, its core a churning maelstrom, best left undisturbed. He turned to Commander Eva Rostova, her face grim, shadows deepening under her eyes from lack of sleep. "Commander!" Finn's voice cut through the nervous chatter, surprisingly steady amidst the panic. "Our fusion cores are finished. We need a new source. Something radical, something from the core of this planet." Rostova looked at him, her eyes weary but sharp. "What lunatic idea have you conjured now, Hayes? We're out of options, out of time." "Mount Ignis," Finn stated, pointing towards the dark silhouette. "Geothermal. We tap into its heat, build a plant." A stunned silence fell over the command center. Then, a wave of disbelieving murmurs. "Mount Ignis!" exclaimed Chief Engineer Ramirez, aghast. "Finn, that's not just a volcano, it's a killer mountain. The old legends say it's got a temper. It's dormant, yes, but it's still the primal spirit of Cryos, and we have no equipment for that." "Dormant means opportunity, Ramirez," Finn countered, a spark in his tired eyes. "And we have enough junk lying around this colony to build a small city. We'll make a makeshift geothermal plant. It won't be pretty, and it might just get Mount Ignis to talk to us, but it'll get us heat and power. Elara needs it." Commander Rostova stared at him, then back at the flickering power indicators. The idea was madness. Her training, her entire career, screamed against such an unconventional, primitive gamble. But Jax's pale face, the eerie quiet in the colony's usually bustling corridors, the absolute failure of their superior technology. What choice did she have? The threat was real, and it was taking her people, piece by piece. "How primitive are we talking, Hayes?" she asked, her voice tight, a sliver of desperate hope in her eyes. "Primitive enough to work, Commander," Finn replied with a grim, determined smile, his gaze fixed on the distant mountain. "We're going to make a deal with a fire mountain for life." Commander Rostova's approval was less an endorsement and more a concession to the Grim Reaper. "All right, Hayes," she'd said, her voice thin with exhaustion. "You've got 3 cycles to put together your contraption. After that, the cold takes over for good." The weight of those words, the haunting image of Elara's weakening life support readouts, pressed heavily on Finn. 3 cycles. Not much time when you're trying to bargain with a mountain. Finn knew he couldn't face the heart of Cryos alone. His first stop was the heavy machinery bay, where he found Kale, a burly, grizzled pilot and operator, meticulously polishing the worn treads of a cargo hauler. Kale was a man of few words, and most of them were complaints. "You're certifiable, Finn," Kale grumbled, not looking up. "Mount Ignis?" "That's where the whispers come from, the kind that freeze your soul. The old ones say, it takes more than just heat from you." Despite his cynicism, a flicker of grudging respect for Finn's sheer nerve, and perhaps a deep-seated fear for his own family in the rapidly chilling colony, shone in Kale's eyes. He sighed, wiped his hands on a greasy rag, and gave a reluctant nod. "Fine, but if we freeze out there, I'm haunting your workshop." Next, Finn tracked down Zia. She was usually found amidst the colony's sprawling scrap heaps, a true artist of forgotten tech, capable of turning anything from a broken comms array into a sophisticated sensor. Zia was a whirlwind of boundless energy and rapid-fire questions, a stark contrast to Kale's stoicism. "A geothermal plant built from salvage," she shrieked, her eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and pure, unadulterated excitement. "Like a giant, clanking Frankenstein monster of a power source. Count me in. This is so much cooler than optimizing comm relays." She brought a much-needed jolt of optimism, and an uncanny ability to find the exact, improbable component Finn needed from a mountain of rusted debris. Finally, there was Sparky, Finn's most loyal and most accident-prone robotic assistant. Sparky was an old-model utility bot, more rust than polished chrome, with optical sensors that often flickered independently and a tendency to interpret commands with comical literalness. He was prone to accidental slapstick, often tripping over his own treads or dropping tools at precisely the wrong moment, but his brute strength and unwavering dedication made him an indispensable, and often hilarious, member of the team. Query: initiating highly improbable yet potentially life-saving endeavor protocol. Sparky whirred, his voice box crackling, before promptly bumping into a support beam. Finn just patted his dented chassis. "That's the spirit, Sparky." Their workshop quickly transformed into a symphony of organized chaos. Old solar panels were repurposed into rudimentary heat exchangers. Sections of defunct water purifiers became part of a complex filtration system. And even the skeletal remains of a crashed atmospheric lander were stripped for its superalloy plating. Finn, with Zia frantically sorting materials and Kale shaking his head at the sheer lunacy of it all, sketched designs on frost-covered schematics, his mind buzzing with improvisational solutions. The journey to Mount Ignis itself was a brutal, bone-jarring prologue to the main challenge. Kale piloted their heavily armored ice crawler, a monstrous vehicle groaning under the impossible weight of their scavenged equipment. Outside, the blizzards raged with renewed fury as if Cryos itself sensed their defiance. Whiteouts reduced visibility to zero, forcing Kale to rely on advanced terrain mapping and sheer gut instinct. Ice storms hammered the crawler, the sound like 1,000 hammers striking steel. Inside, the emergency heaters strained, barely keeping the chill at bay. Every few hours they'd get a terse comm from the colony. Power grid at 15%. Hydroponics freezing faster. Medical triage initiated. The urgency was a tightening knot in Finn's gut, a reminder that Alara was running out of time. As they finally approached Mount Ignis, its sheer, terrifying scale became apparent. It wasn't just a peak. It was a colossal, jagged fortress of black rock, rising ominously from the white plains. Columns of steam, thick and white against the dim light, vented from cracks and fissures, momentarily melting the ice before freezing again into grotesque, impossible formations. The ground trembled faintly beneath the crawler. Not a true earthquake, but a persistent, low-frequency hum that vibrated through the metal, a subtle reminder of the power simmering beneath. Old colonists' tales of the heart of Cryos breathing fire felt terrifyingly real here. Setting up base camp at the volcano's base was an ordeal. The extreme cold of Cryos met the surprising, localized heat radiating from the ground, creating bizarre microclimates where ice formed on superheated rocks, only to flash melt into vapor. This constant thermal shock began to affect their materials even before they started drilling. Metal beams, brought from the colony, groaned and warped under the stress. Their initial attempts at drilling were met with immediate, frustrating challenges. The first specialized drill bit, designed for Cryos's permafrost, snapped against a layer of incredibly super-hard volcanic rock, showering them with sparks. "Like trying to drill through a diamond with a toothpick," Kale grumbled, inspecting the broken bit. Finn quickly realized they weren't dealing with typical rock. The long-term, immense pressure and heat, deep within Mount Ignis, had created geological formations unlike anything he'd seen. As they changed bits, a sudden violent steam burst erupted from a nearby vent, sending scalding vapor hissing through the air, melting a layer of ice from their equipment. Sparky, ever enthusiastic, tried to clear a path but slipped on the newly formed slick, tumbling into a snowdrift with a muffled clang. "Error! Propulsion system compromised." "Humiliation protocols initiated," he whirred, buried in snow, his optical sensors flashing wildly. Finn pulled him out, a rare, tired laugh escaping him. It was a stark reminder that Mount Ignis had its own temperament. They learned to read the mountain's subtle cues. The faint tremors that preceded a steam burst, the distant rumble that hinted at a shift in underground pressure. Finn, with Zaya's quick mind for improvisation and Kale's brute force, began adapting. They fashioned makeshift heat shields from salvaged thermal blankets and reinforced their drill housings with multi-layered plating from the crashed lander. Slowly, painstakingly, the first section of the power plant, a crude towering drilling rig made of mismatched metal beams and groaning hydraulics, began to rise against the ominous backdrop of Mount Ignis. It was a ramshackle monument to their desperation, a testament to Jugad engineering in its purest form. Every clank, every weld, every groan of metal was a prayer for warmth, a desperate attempt to talk sense into the killer mountain. The rhythm of their days became a grueling dance with the mountain. Drill, weld, reinforce. Drill, weld, reinforce. The makeshift plant was now a sprawling, ramshackle contraption of salvaged metal and repurposed conduits, its pipes groaning and its nascent turbine humming with an unsettling off-kilter rhythm. The grumble valve, Finn's perpetually troublesome relief valve, often let out a loud, shuddering sigh, demanding a sharp whack from Kale's enormous wrench. Zia, a blur of motion, tirelessly sorted through endless piles of junk, somehow always pulling out the exact obscure component Finn needed, a rusted pressure plate here, a length of salvaged wiring there. Sparky, true to form, provided involuntary comic relief, narrowly avoiding plummeting into newly melted ice pits or accidentally short-circuiting small equipment with his clumsy enthusiasm. But the mountain was fighting back. And it wasn't just geological. As they drilled deeper into Mount Ignis, the faint, persistent tremor that had greeted them at its base grew stronger, more pronounced. It wasn't just instability. It felt deliberate. The low, resonant hums and guttural growls that emanated from deep within the volcano were no longer just background noise. Finn, leaning his hand against the cold, hard rock of the drilling shaft, felt a powerful thrum vibrating through the mountain, a sound that seemed to come from its very core, like a giant sleeping beast rousing itself. One particularly frustrating cycle, a sudden, violent steam burst erupted directly from their primary drilling site, not from a natural vent. It wasn't random, it seemed almost aimed. The scalding vapor hissed through the air, briefly melting a section of their newly installed heat exchanger, ruining a full day's work. Later, a crucial set of diagnostic tools, left momentarily on a rock shelf, inexplicably became so cold to the touch they frosted over instantly, freezing Finn's gloves to the metal. It was a localized, impossible chill that defied Cryos's natural patterns. "It's like Mount Ignis is playing games with us, Finn," Zia muttered, rubbing her frozen hands together. "These aren't just random events, it's pushing back, almost like it knows we're here." Finn just grunted, inspecting the damaged heat exchanger. "Maybe Mount Ignis just needs its morning synth caf, Zia. Bit of a grump before it warms up." But even as he joked, a strange feeling settled in his gut. The mountain wasn't just a geological formation, it was reacting. Its resistance felt personal, a subtle, almost playful anger. One time, Kale's heavy wrench, left on a pipe, suddenly heated up to an uncomfortable degree, causing him to drop it with a yell and a string of colorful curses. Another time, Sparky, while trying to connect a power cable, found his optical sensors inexplicably flickering, displaying a chaotic sequence of swirling red and orange lights. Query: is this confusion or irritation protocol? Sparky whirred, his internal circuits whizzing. Finn, watching the lights, felt a chill that had nothing to do with Cryos's temperature. It was as if the mountain was trying to communicate its displeasure. Unknown to Finn and his team, their actions were indeed causing a profound reaction, not just from the mountain itself, but from its ancient, silent observers. High above Cryos, cloaked by the perpetual blizzards, hovered a fleet of sleek, obsidian-black vessels. These belonged to the Ignites, an ancient, alien species. Their bodies were living, intricate constructs of glowing, volcanic rock, their forms shifting subtly with their emotions, like cooling magma. Their entire culture revolved around the worship and deep reverence of planetary core energies, particularly volcanoes. To them, volcanoes were not just geological formations, they were the sacred fury, the primal spirit of a planet, a source of awesome, untamed power that must never be interfered with, only revered from afar. For millennia, they had observed Mount Ignis, sensing its vast, slumbering power. Their ancient prophecies spoke of a cataclysm if the primal spirit was ever awakened without proper reverence. The Ignites had been observing Finn's frantic activities with growing alarm and a chilling sense of sacrilege. Elder Pyron, the leader of the Ignites, her form pulsating with agitated streaks of molten gold, projected her distress across the bridge of her command vessel. "They defile the heart of Cryos," she resonated, her voice a deep, rumbling hum that barely contained her outrage. "These crude beings drill into the primal spirit. Their recklessness will unleash the destruction we have long feared." They interpreted Finn's drilling as a barbaric act, a direct insult to the sacred mountain. Initially, the Ignites attempted subtle interference. They used their own innate connection to planetary energy to redirect minor steam vents, hoping to deter the humans with scalding bursts or unstable ground. The very events Finn had dismissed as natural. They emitted low-frequency energy patterns, not true warnings but raw expressions of their outrage, causing strange, inexplicable glitches in Finn's comms gear, and an unsettling hum that vibrated through the metal of the growing plant structure. Finn would dismiss these as atmospheric interference or volcanic anomalies, adding to the tension and his own growing frustration. He kept muttering about Mount Ignis's bad mood, but the bad mood of Mount Ignis was deepening. The tremors were more frequent, the resistance more direct. Finn, with his peculiar habit of talking to machines and sensing their moods, began to feel an odd connection to the mountain's increasingly agitated responses. He would talk back to its rumbling, sometimes placatingly, sometimes defiantly. He was starting to view the volcano not as an obstacle, but as a vast, powerful, and very annoyed entity. He didn't know what it was, but he knew it was listening. He knew it was alive. And the Ignites, watching from above, knew that their subtle warnings were not enough. The time for direct intervention was rapidly approaching. The cold in the colony was now absolute. Power was down to single digits, and the emergency lights barely cast a pallid glow. The medical bay was a desperate tableau, Alara's breath shallow, her small chest barely rising. Finn worked with a feverish intensity, pushing his team to their limits, driven by the image of his sister's fading form. Kale, though grumbling, moved with a newfound urgency. Zia, her fingers raw, soldered connections with dizzying speed. Sparky, somehow, even managed to drop fewer wrenches. Finn, guided by a strange intuition and countless hours of trial and error, finally found a way to work with Mount Ignis's unpredictable nature. He didn't just drill through the superheated crystal formations. He designed a new type of resonant frequency emitter from scavenged comms equipment. This emitter, once activated, would send out a low, soothing hum that seemed to resonate with the crystal, gently coaxing it to open passages rather than resisting. It was less engineering, more like playing a complex, geological instrument. "All right, everyone, last push," Finn yelled over the groan of the massive, cobbled-together turbine. "Sparky, check that main conduit pressure. Kale, get ready to open the diversion valve. Zia, pray this holds." With a synchronized effort, they activated the last connections. The plant shuddered, a cacophony of metallic screeches and clanking pipes. The turbine, a Frankenstein's monster of repurposed parts, began to spin, slow at first, then gaining a powerful, if slightly off-kilter, rhythm. A wave of raw, immense heat, the very breath of Mount Ignis, surged through the primary conduits. Miles away, within the colony dome, a collective gasp rippled through the freezing population. Lights flickered on, steadily growing brighter, chasing away the shadows. The low hum of failing life support systems surged back to full power. In the hydroponic farms, the thin layer of ice on the water rapidly receded, steam rising, as warmth returned. Jarek, the hydroponics manager, watched, tears streaming down his face, as the shriveling green shoots slowly unfurled, miraculously brought back from the brink. In the medical bay, Ilara's life support monitor went from flashing a desperate red to a steady, reassuring green. Commander Rostova, standing amidst the sudden warmth, felt a wave of profound relief so strong it almost brought her to her knees. They had done it. Finn Hayes had tamed the killer mountain. But the triumph was short-lived. The very act of drawing so much power from Mount Ignis had indeed roused its ancient living heart. The low hum Finn had felt for days now swelled into a deafening roar, vibrating through the very air. The ground beneath them convulsed, not with geological tremors, but with a primal, furious shudder. New fissures, glowing with molten orange, ripped across the volcano's slopes. Chunks of rock, incandescent with inner heat, were violently ejected from the main vent, landing with explosive force. This was no longer just resistance. This was Mount Ignis's full fury unleashed. A stream of molten lava, glowing with an internal, malevolent light, erupted from a new vent, flowing directly towards their precarious plant. It wasn't a natural flow. It snaked and darted, almost as if personally targeting their conduits. Finn's favorite wrench, lying on a control panel, suddenly vibrated violently, then flew off, narrowly missing his head. A gust of scalding, superheated wind, carrying fine volcanic ash, swirled directly at Sparky, causing his optical sensors to malfunction, and display a chaotic jumble of angry red patterns. Warning: extreme hostile intent detected. Recalibrating self-preservation protocols. Sparky whirred, stumbling backwards. The fire spirit was angry, and it was playing for keeps. Just as the lava flow threatened to engulf a critical heat exchanger, a brilliant, blinding light split the sky. A massive, obsidian black vessel, far larger and more ornate than any seen before, descended directly towards their plant. It wasn't cloaked by the storm. It carved through the blizzard as if the winds themselves bowed to its presence. From its underbelly, shimmering beams of pure energy extended, hitting the lava flow. The molten rock, as if suddenly repelled by an invisible force, parted, diverting just inches from the precious equipment. Then, from the vessel, a shimmering form descended. It was an Ignite, larger and more commanding than any previously imagined. Her crystalline body pulsed with molten gold and vibrant crimson, radiating an aura of ancient power. This was Elder Pyron, the venerable leader of the Ignites. Her presence alone seemed to momentarily calm the raging volcano, as if even the primal spirit acknowledged her authority. Her voice, a deep, resonant hum, filled their comms, but this time, it was laced with both outrage and a profound, reluctant awe. "Stop, humans! You have poked the sacred heart. You have drawn from the primal spirit, and now, its fury will consume us all." She pointed a glowing appendage towards the raging lava, then towards their humming plant. "This is not merely rock. This is the heart of Cryos, a living entity, angered by your audacious intrusion." Finn, despite the terrifying display, felt a strange surge of insight. He looked at the angry lava, then back at the sputtering but functional plant, then at Elder Pyron, whose entire being screamed reverence for this spirit. He didn't see an angry god, but a powerful, ancient being that was simply misunderstood. "Elder Pyron!" Finn yelled back, his voice hoarse but firm, surprisingly confident in the face of such overwhelming alien power. "We didn't come to conquer, we came to survive. Your spirit gives life, but it was sleeping. We just gave it a wake-up call. It needs to share its energy, or this planet will kill us all." He then did something completely unorthodox. He walked towards the roaring vent, holding up a hand, as if directly addressing the volcano. "Hey there, Heart of Cryos! Look, I get it, you're not a morning person," Finn shouted, a strained chuckle escaping him. "But we need this. We can make a deal. You give us power, just enough to keep us warm, and we'll show you how to channel it, not just blow up. No more random temper tantrums, okay? A controlled burn, a steady hum. We can work together." Elder Pyron's form pulsed with a mixture of utter disbelief and something akin to a shimmering internal shock. Never in their long history had anyone dared to negotiate with a primal spirit. Yet, as Finn spoke, the furious lava flow seemed to hesitate for a fleeting moment. The roaring quieted, just a fraction, replaced by a low, questioning rumble. Finn pressed his advantage. "You get to hum all day, powerful as ever. We get to live. It's a win-win, Mount Ignis. What do you say, a fiery pact for life?" The volcano responded. Not with an eruption, but with a deep, resonant thrum that vibrated directly into Finn's bones. A frequency that felt almost like a thoughtful sigh. Elder Pyron watched, her glowing form momentarily still. The lava flow, instead of resuming its destructive path, slowly, majestically, began to divert, flowing into new, harmless channels away from the plant, almost as if guided by an unseen hand. The primal growls of the mountain changed, becoming a deep, contented rumble that resonated through the ground. Elder Pyron stepped forward, her light pulsing with newfound understanding. It hears you. It acknowledges the pact, unprecedented. You have not tamed it by force, but by proposition, by respect." Her previous outrage had vanished, replaced by a profound awe. The Ignites, who had studied volcanoes for millennia, had never conceived of such an interaction. Finn Hayes, the crazy human engineer, had just negotiated peace with a living mountain. The immediate aftermath of the fiery pact was a surreal ballet of two species and a conscious mountain. Elder Pyron, her molten form shimmering with an awe Finn could almost feel, approached him. "We have observed the primal spirit for cycles beyond count," she resonated, "and never have we witnessed such direct communion. Your method, human Finn Hayes, is not of force but of harmony. It is new." The Ignites, once fearful and accusatory, now regarded Finn with profound respect, mixed with a healthy dose of bewildered fascination. They had been observers, humans had become partners. The alliance quickly blossomed into a unique collaboration. The Ignites, with their innate connection to planetary energy, could sense the minute shifts within Mount Ignis. Their crystalline bodies vibrated in sync with the mountain's core, allowing them to pinpoint areas of building pressure or the subtle stirrings of the fire spirit's mood. Elder Pyron would transmit these complex energy patterns to Finn, who, with Zaya's genius for interface design, translated them into usable data for his plant. "Okay, fire spirit's feeling a bit cranky this cycle," Finn would announce, studying a pattern of fluctuating lights on Zaya's newly designed moodometer. "Kale, open the secondary relief valve by 3.7 degrees. Sparky, get ready to initiate the happy hum frequency." Kale, grumbling less these days, would precisely adjust the massive valves, while Sparky, whirring with uncharacteristic precision, would emit a low, specific frequency that seemed to visibly soothe the plant's rumbling, calming the mountain. It was less engineering, more like parenting a very large, fiery child. The plant itself thrived. Its cobbled-together pipes, once prone to breaking, now seemed to pulse with a steady, vibrant energy, their surfaces strangely warm to the touch. It provided abundant heat and power, transforming the colony. Hydroponic farms, now superheated by volcanic conduits, blossomed with lush, oversized crops. They even discovered a new variety of cryolava melon, a sweet, juicy fruit that grew only in the volcano's unique warmth. The colony also developed spectacular hot springs, where colonists could finally shed their heavy environmental suits and soak in mineral-rich pools, the steam rising into the freezing cryos air. Laughter, once a rare sound, now echoed frequently through the domes. The Ignites established permanent, ground-integrated research outposts near Mount Ignis, their shimmering, organic rock structures merging seamlessly with the volcanic landscape. They shared their ancient knowledge of planetary energies, teaching humans about the subtle language of Cryos's core, how to read its geological heartbeat. In return, humans, particularly Zia and Sparky, eagerly taught the Ignites about Jugod engineering. The Ignites, initially perplexed by the concept of repurposing waste, became fascinated by humanity's boundless resourcefulness, seeing it as a unique form of creativity. Elder Pyron found herself observing Sparky's clumsy but effective repairs with genuine interest, occasionally even trying to optimize his movements with her own energy pulses. The shared journey forged not just an alliance but a deep cultural fusion. New traditions emerged. Once a month, the colony would hold the Volcano Grumble Festival. Finn, standing before Mount Ignis, would address the mountain directly, often with playful teasing. "All right, old friend, feeling spicy today? Don't forget who gave you that nice, even flow." The Ignites would respond by creating mesmerizing light patterns with their bodies, a visual symphony that represented the mountain's current mood. Humans learned to interpret these patterns, strengthening their bond with both the Ignites and Mount Ignis itself. Finn Hayes was no longer just the eccentric engineer. He was revered as the Fire Whisperer, or even Krios Kadil, the one who had literally made a deal with the devil, or rather a slumbering spirit, and won. He still muttered to his wrenches, but now he also often paused, his head tilted, listening to the deep, contented rumble that emanated from Mount Ignis. He felt its presence, its steady power, almost like a living companion. And in the medical bay, Elara made a full, miraculous recovery. She would often visit Finn at the plant, her eyes wide with wonder at the glowing conduits and the humming turbine. She, more than anyone, understood the preciousness of the warmth and life Mount Ignis now provided. In the end, Mount Ignis was not conquered, but understood. Its fury was not suppressed, but channeled. Finn, now older, his face etched with wisdom and a permanent smudge of volcanic ash, would sometimes stand beside Elder Pyron, watching the giant mountain. From its depths would come a low, powerful purr, a soft, contented rumble that radiated warmth. It was the sound of a primal spirit at peace, a testament to the extraordinary pact between a quirky human engineer, an ancient alien race, and a living, breathing volcano. Cryos, once a frozen tomb, was now a vibrant, thriving beacon, a testament to the fact that sometimes the greatest leaps forward aren't made by conquering nature, but by listening to its whispers and befriending its fiery heart.